Hey folks. I'm this lovely backdrop you see here is it's in the cabin up here in Michigan, and it's my grandmother's old room, or at least I still think of it as her room. She passed away about 15 years ago, but it's been maintained the way she had it, and it's still very much her style. And I was thinking it was interesting because that ties in with something that I was talking about yesterday, and then a little bit again today. I had my master class again today with Madeline Bruiser, and it was fantastic as always. And the kind of central thing today was we kind of went deeper into some of the rhythmic work that we started last week. And I just realized, there's so many, it's just so intricate, the way that the flow of time works in music. And it's so easy to think that you understand time because you understand the tempo keeps moving at this kind of flat rate in this metronomic way. And what Madeline is doing is really infusing me with an understanding that tempo and rhythm are waves. They come in waves. It's like the lake, like the water. Which makes total sense. Waves are vibration. Waves are vibration, travels in waves. So it would make total sense that music would have also on the tempo, time, scale level this sense of being animated by waves. And it was just, it's incredibly palpable, the difference between playing without that and playing with that. So I felt like that's really opening a new door for me. And I think, and so I was, another thing that is sort of related to that, which is it's kind of what my mind is doing now that I'm sitting here in my grandmother's room, has to do, I was talking to my uncle just yesterday. He was here, I think, for dinner, or maybe the day before, and he was talking about my grandmother, who is a wonderful pianist, and she, the piano that we have here in Michigan is her old piano, and he was talking about how she used to play very, very accurately and very cleanly, but she seemed to have trouble, or this was his recollection, that she had trouble infusing passion or emotion into the music. And that just made me think, because on some level, the first thing I thought was, wow, I really understand that, because I've worked with a lot of students who I think might say the same thing about their playing, or might feel the same thing about their playing, that they strive. I notice students striving for accuracy, striving for getting the notes right, and that's a massive challenge on piano. Getting the notes right is a big that's a tall order when you're learning a piece, and so it's easy to focus on that and to let the sort of expression, the emotion go. But I think precisely for the reasons that I'm also touching on with this idea of how time works and how time flows in waves, precisely for that same reason, it's important to remember that music is not the right notes. The right notes might be there, but they're not. That doesn't make it music. And I notice myself emphasizing this with students some as well. I've had students that I told, I want you to play wrong notes. I want you to blast through this thing, and I don't care how many wrong notes you play, but I want you to feel the line of expression that's happening there. Now, I don't do that. That's not the only way to practice. Obviously, that's just an exercise. It's a way of addressing an aspect of the music that otherwise might not come online until much later in the process. At which point, the music is kind of programmed without that, and so I try to bring it in early. Um, but it was really interesting to me to hear that my grandmother kind of seemed to have that kind of stiffness around her playing. And again, I can't speak to this from personal, or I don't remember her playing well enough to be able to really say that. But I'm not surprised, and in a way, I was really grateful to hear that, and really and grateful. My thought was, oh, well then, because in a lot of ways I feel like that I share a lineage with my grandmother. I mean, my father was musical, and I definitely feel like that's the line of music that I'm carrying, from my dad's side. He's the one who sat with me at the piano when I was a kid and taught me, and kind of has ushered me through various phases of my musical development. But there's my mom's side too. This is my maternal grandmother, and the fact that she was a pianist, and in some ways I think I carry some of that too. I carry some of her lineage, and some of her habits of thought, habits of how she, of just mind. And so that, because I certainly know from myself that I can get very focused on, trying to play clean, trying to get it right, basically, over letting the expression kind of go. It's like I don't feel safe letting the expression really go until I feel like I have command of the details. And what I'm learning today through this work with Madeline is that you don't get there by just focusing on the kind of micro and trying to play every note clean. It's not that that's not important, and we actually did a couple different strategies for that, but it's kind of like there's a holisticness to this. It's all one thing. You're not going to play the right notes right without that feeling, that flow. Like, what are the notes meant to say? It's almost like saying you could recite, Shakespeare's monologues, but without knowing what the words mean, and that would obviously be 1,000 times harder than it already is to recite Shakespeare's monologues, because when we allow the language to be animated by what we understand, what we know it means, it's communicating meaning, then that meaning carries us along. That meaning drags the words along behind it. Whereas if we're just trying to remember the words, but there's no meaning attached to them, all of a sudden it becomes this incredibly difficult thing to do, because you're trying to, and not to mention much less satisfying and meaningless. But I think there's an element of that happening on piano where it's like it's not going to get more precise or more clean. After a certain level, it's not going to get more precise or more clean without infusing it with that passion, without infusing it with the flow, the waves of time, the real sense of listening to it and hearing the groupings of beats and groupings of notes and whatnot. It's all one thing at the end of the day, and I think I'm learning and I'm getting an appreciation for how those are all bound together, and how they're actually really, in order to practice any of them well, in order to practice any of them in a way that will give us a full result, we have to practice them all together. We can't separate them out as much as maybe we might tend to want to do. So, yeah, another fantastic class today. Oh my God, I'm learning so much. I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. Unbelievable. So yeah, that's where I am today, people. It's another lovely day at the lake. Kind of a rainy day at the lake, but it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow. We'll see. Thanks for listening. As always, I appreciate you so much for being in my life and for receiving this. And I look forward to talking to you soon.